you, 30% of women gave themselves an electric shock and 60% of men gave themselves an electric shock. Our society version is blame them, it's their fault, they upset you, they're wrong. And our friends will agree with that. When you go and tell your friend that so-and-so did something, they'll say, oh yeah, well, you know, he or she's a XYZ, spending too much time in America, the XYZ of they're so-and-so, they're like this, they're like that. And actually in that moment, I think the best thing we can do is, what's my accountability in this? What part of this have I created for myself? This is a really uncomfortable, difficult question to ask, but it is the best question you can ask yourself. If every time something goes wrong or something doesn't work out, instead of blaming someone else or blaming yourself, if you can pause and say, what part of this am I responsible for? And I think the reason why that's difficult is because we see everything as binary. We see it as it's either their fault or it's all my fault. It's all your fault or it's all my fault. And the truth is, there is no all. It's all parts. It's partly your fault and it's partly my fault. But if I don't understand what my part to play is, then I can't actually understand it. So the first step is, what's my part? That's the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise is, now that I know what my part is, let me focus on what skill I'm missing. Let me focus on what growth I haven't had. Let me focus on what part of my life feels incomplete that makes me act in my incomplete way with others. So what part of me is missing? And I found that when I was over-sacrificing or over-giving, that's because I was trying to demand love from someone else and demand validation from someone else. So I was almost trying to achieve or earn that love and validation. And so I realized I wasn't giving it to myself. And so now I've realized that whatever you want from someone else, give it to yourself first. If you want compliments from someone else, give them to yourself first. If you want validation from someone else, give it to yourself first. Because no matter how many of them they give you, if you never gave it to yourself in the first place, it will never be enough. So that's the second step. Whatever you want from someone else, give it to yourself first. And the third step I'd say to get to that self-awareness is simply sitting down and plotting the 3 most difficult times in your life. So sit down and write down what have been the 3 most difficult times in my life, or the most painful decision-making points of transition in my life. And then ask yourself, when you made good decisions, what was the environment like? Who were you listening to? What were people saying around you? And when you made poor decisions, what was the environment like? What were people saying? Who were you listening to? And you'll start to spot a pattern. And I found that in my life, anytime I make a good decision, most people disagree with me. I have to listen to my inner voice, and I'm usually doing something against the grain. Now that's my pattern, but everyone has to find their own. So I would say that over time I've done journaling. I love voice notes because I like speaking sometimes more than writing. But I'd say the biggest one, if I'm completely honest with you, Stephen, like sitting here with you and you're looking in my eyes asking me that question, I'm like, the honest answer is I talk to myself a lot while driving. I talk out loud to myself a lot. And I will sit there while I'm driving and I will talk through that day about a situation where I didn't like how I behaved, or a situation where I was really happy about how I behaved. And so I'll pinpoint, and I always think it's really powerful to pinpoint a point where you were below your expectation and a point where you were above your expectation. And I'll sit there and I'll ask myself, why was it that I was above my expectation? Why did I have the ability in that moment to act in that way? I'll give an example of where I was below my expectation the other day. I was going to play tennis with a friend in the morning, and I was running late because I woke up, I was figuring things out that morning. I had a few work emails from the night before. I'm 8 hours ahead of LA right now, so I had things to catch up on. I'm running late to play tennis. We've got the court booked and it's only booked for an hour, so we might be late. Something really insignificant, by the way. I turn up and I meet the lady at the front, and they haven't been able to give me a membership card because I'm only here for 10 days. And then I'm like, here's my membership number. And and they can't figure it out and they don't know if I'm in the system, and now we're getting later for the court. And I'm holding my own, and I'm on the verge of just being like, get on with it. Like, can't we, this is not that complicated. And I resist from that. But in my head, I'm thinking, why did that even happen? Like, why am I even feeling the urge to put a simple person trying to do their job? Why am I thinking to release my anger and anguish onto them? And when I thought about that later that day, it was all because I was late. I was frustrated that my friend's gonna be upset that we're 30 minutes late for the court. I was upset that we're gonna get even less time. And I was about to take it out on an innocent person who actually has nothing to do with any of it, who's trying to do their job. And so for me, talking out loud when I'm on my own, spending time, actually, now when I'm answering your question, spending time alone is the only place where you get to have these conversations. And most of us are spending time away from being alone because we're scared of having these conversations. I'm sure you've seen, they did that study where they asked men and women whether they either wanted to be alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes or give themselves an electric shock. Now, the results will surprise you. 30% of women gave themselves an electric shock, and 60% of men gave themselves an electric shock. And the reason was because they didn't want to be alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. We struggle so much with the idea of being present in our own minds and bodies and hearts that we distract ourselves. So really the habit is being present with myself, with my thoughts, and working through when I'm happy with myself and when I think I could have done better. I think it's because we've equated loneliness and being alone with abandonment. And those are two completely different ideas. You can be lonely, but that doesn't mean you've been abandoned. And we confuse this so much. Paul Tillich writes about this, and he says that the challenge today is that we think that there's only one word for being alone, and we call it loneliness. And he says we've forgotten about a second word, it's called solitude. Solitude and loneliness externally look the same, but they're completely different things. And he says that solitude is the strength of being alone, and loneliness is the weakness. And to me, it's because being alone feels like abandonment. It feels like everyone has left us. It feels like we're alone at the end of the party and no one's gonna stay. We've created a feeling of being enamored and being forced to admire being together. My other half, my better half, the person who completes me. It's like all of this language is phrased in a way to make you feel half and incomplete. When someone came to school and they didn't have someone to sit next to them, that person was considered the loner. If you had a birthday party and no one showed up, you were considered unpopular. All of our self-worth since we were young has been defined by, do you have people around you? Not the quality of those people, not the depth of those people, not how much those people actually love you. Just, did you have people around you? And so we've just been conditioned to believe that being alone means being lonely, means being abandoned. When actually being in solitude could be the most beautiful thing we could do. So it's just, as a society, we've got to unlearn that conditioning that's made us forcefully believe that if you don't have someone else, if you turn up to a wedding and you don't have a +1, that's like one of the most stressful things for people. I don't know who I'm gonna take. Why is it that prom, if you don't have a date, every single major life event, graduating, weddings, they're all based around having someone else there to celebrate you? Why? Like, why can't we just celebrate ourselves? And I think that's where we've lost it. We've lost the idea of celebrating ourselves. I think prehistorically, it makes sense. But I think the social construct has been that equating solitude or loneliness with isolation, seclusion, and separation. And I think we confuse the two ideas. Spending time every day in solitude is not me saying to you, don't talk to anyone all year.
You're not good enough.
Right, yeah. And it's not like me saying spending some time talking to yourself and being alone with your thoughts means never go to a party or an event. Like I just think we've got really poor as humans as entertaining two ideas that are supposedly conflicting, but recognizing that there's a middle ground. Like we're poor at saying, okay, well, Jay and Stephen aren't saying be alone or be surrounded by people. We're saying spend some time alone and be intentional about who you spend your time with. And for some reason, the human mind goes, no, I think you're telling me that I have to go live in a forest and be away from everyone. But that's not really what solitude is. Solitude is, I am comfortable spending time with myself for a few moments a day, enjoying my own company.